The truth is, when it comes to you spending time in Thailand, there is a certain situation, a certain experience that understandably a lot of tourists and expats alike want to have be a part of their dream Thailand vacation. But unfortunately, the reality is if you don't have a good grasp on what this situation really entails, it's very possible that your dream Thailand trip could become a nightmare, which is what we're talking about today. How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you are having a wonderful day. So first things first, before we get into the meat of today's video, which is very important. So if you are coming to Thailand soon, make sure you stick it out. But before we get into all that, I want to apologize to you for being a bit AWOL this week, for being kind of nowhere to be found. We have been a bit out of it. I apologize for that. In truth, this is day 4 of no smokes for your boy. I quit smoking a long time ago in America, but just like a lot of other people, when I got to Thailand, I didn't last very long and I picked up the pack again. But today is day 4 without a single smoke. Honestly, I feel pretty good today. That wasn't the case yesterday and the day before, especially yesterday. Had a headache, just absolutely zero motivation. So I apologize for that, but we are feeling good. We're feeling ready to get back to work. So with that in mind, let's get into today's video. Now, I stumbled across a news article yesterday that is honestly very close to my heart for a multitude of reasons. This is a situation that could very easily turn your dream Thailand trip into an absolute nightmare, and it happens all the time. A 23-year-old British man has been left in a coma following a collision while traveling on a motorbike in Koh Samui, Thailand on Sunday. He's currently receiving treatment at Med Park Hospital in Bangkok. His father, Kieran Dugan, has traveled to Bangkok and told the BBC they said he's brain dead. You've got to have hope. Tyler's family and friends have raised about £80,000 to help cover his medical fees and move him to either Australia or the UK to continue treatment. Tiger had bought travel insurance before his trip. This is a very important point to understand here, guys. Tiger had bought travel insurance before his trip, but a clause in the policy regarding motorbikes has meant his insurance would not cover the medical bills relating to the incident. Now, it is no secret that a lot of people come to Thailand, and it used to be a lot more lax in regards to the proper licensing and stuff to drive around, but it's not really a thing anymore. You are very likely to run into a checkpoint and not only get a fine, but if you do have any type of travel insurance, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, if you are unlicensed and you are driving a vehicle that is not, you're not technically allowed to be driving, that will void any insurance you do have. So I've already been on the internet long enough to know that there is guaranteed to be at least one person in the comments saying, oh, well, that's what you get. Oh, you should have been wearing a helmet and that wouldn't happen. I really love how with the rise of social media, apparently now there are all these people who are just these perfect specimens of human existence that have never made a bad choice in their entire life. Now, I am not saying that just because people make bad choices, you should do everything you can to do that as well. Of course not. But especially when it comes to a 23-year-old kid, I can guarantee every single one of us made some decisions that we got away with. But if we hadn't, it would have ended up a lot worse. And that's how I feel in regards to this. Yes, of course, you should be wearing a helmet. I really think there's some other things you should be wearing as well, which we will get into a little bit later when we talk about some things that you can do to protect yourself. I know myself personally, I made plenty of mistakes, honestly, much worse than this when I was at that age. So have some sympathy, be a human, understand everybody makes mistakes, and all we can do is do our best to avoid them. Now, in regards to this whole situation, I'm honestly a little bit torn, because if it was just about, hey, keeping you as safe as you can and doing everything you can to make sure this doesn't happen to you on your trip to Thailand or anywhere for that matter, the easy solution would just be, okay, don't ride bikes and you are much less likely to get into an accident. Of course, you can make the argument that cars are also dangerous, which is of course true. There's part of me that feels on that side of it, that was just, hey, if you aren't super experienced, even if you are, maybe it's a better idea to just stay off the bikes. But there's also a part of me that has been riding motorcycles my entire life. And it's really hard for me to tell somebody this isn't something you should do if you want to do it. I love motorcycles. I always have, and especially when it comes to Thailand, I think a motorcycle is a great way to experience experience the country or the city. One, it's much more practical most of the time. You're not going to be dealing with as much crazy traffic. I think being out in the air and the sounds and the smells is such a more immersive experience when you're exploring a place. But of course, there is a side of danger that comes with that. You can be the top best rider in the world, and the reality is when you're sharing the road with other people, stuff can happen. It's not if you crash, it's when you crash. That's just something we say. But there are a few things you can do. If this is something that you really want to do, you understand the risk that comes with it. A few things you can do to make yourself as safe as relatively possible. So we'll get into those now. First things first, like what was mentioned in the article, is travel insurance. Any type of insurance. Obviously, it's just a good idea to have it in general, but especially if you're planning on riding a motorcycle. But like we mentioned, you need to really dive in and make sure that the coverage that you're getting covers that type of situation. Now, it's a little bit easier if you're an expat and you're planning on moving here. You can purchase vehicle insurance that covers you and your bike for the most part. It's very affordable, especially compared to America. We're not going to talk about my insurance premiums in America, but that is step one. Make sure, God forbid, something does happen, that you'll at least be able to get some care and make sure you get everything taken care of. You'll be able to go to the hospital, and that's not something that's gonna be hanging over your head the entire time. Now, the next thing you can do, which is another way that I feel like a lot of people who are inexperienced really drop the ball, is understanding what type of bike you should be riding to keep yourself safe. Now, I hope I don't have to tell you, if you aren't an experienced rider, I know they look cool. I know it's fun to go fast. They look super sweet. If you're coming and you haven't been riding for an extended period of time, coming to Thailand and renting some type of big bike, I'm talking 650, bigger than that, sport bikes, that is just not a good idea. One, it's pretty unsafe. You don't really know how to deal with that. Those bikes are so unforgiving. Those bikes, if you make a single relatively minuscule mistake, they will absolutely punish you. So that is a terrible idea in my opinion. Now, this does change a little bit depending on what you're planning on doing. Maybe if you're planning on doing a motorbike tour, something like that, you're planning on going all over the country. Yes, a bigger bike can actually help you be safe because you got a bit more power. You can cruise at speed. You can go with the flow of traffic on certain roads. Having a small bike that is very slow can almost be more dangerous than speeding. Have a very good understanding and be honest with yourself about what your experience level is. Don't get a big bike just because it makes you think it makes you look cool, because I'll tell you what, no matter what type of bike you got, if you're laying in the middle of the road, nobody thinks you look cool. Now, the next huge thing that I feel like a ton of people skip out on is proper equipment. A lot of people don't know that Thailand does have a helmet law. Technically, it is just flat illegal to be riding a motorcycle in Thailand without a helmet. I hope I don't have to tell you that even if it was legal to ride without one, of course you should be wearing a helmet. And then there's a couple other things that I refuse to get on a bike without: shoes and gloves. The glove aspect, for me personally, it's also just more comfortable holding on to, sweaty grips when I have gloves on. But also, even if you have a little spill, first thing you're gonna do is put your hands out. It's just the way your brain works. And having shredded road rash palms is a really lame way to spend your vacation, in my experience. And the other thing when it comes to good closed-toed shoes, the amount of people, when you come to Thailand, you will see tons, almost all the locals riding in sandals. This is one of those things when, just because if you see somebody else do it, doesn't mean you should be doing it. Another natural reaction that is very hard to avoid, even if you have been riding for an extended period of time, is the first thing, as soon as you get into some trouble, your first reaction is to put your feet down. If you're riding in sandals, you're going 40 miles an hour, something happens and you try to stop the bike with your feet, which is very natural, especially for newer riders, and you have flip-flops on, just say goodbye to your toes. I know it's pretty gruesome, it's a little bit dark, but that is a very, very real reality. I can't even count how many foot injuries I've seen from motorcycles because people aren't wearing the proper footwear. Now, probably the most important things to understand when it comes to, making yourself as safe as you can possibly be is understanding where to be on the road, what to do and what not to do, just to try to not put yourself in positions where somebody can, make you go down, or you can, overextend yourself on something, or you're going too slow. And I will be honest, learning and understanding where to be in traffic and where you should be and where you shouldn't be is something that you're gonna have to dive a little bit deeper in. If I really went into everything, we would be here all day. For the most part, a pretty good rule of thumb, especially in Thailand where there are so many people riding motorcycles, is just kind of watch what everybody else is doing. Now, that doesn't mean if you see some Thai dude come by you and he's splitting through cars at 40 miles an hour and going all over the place and not signaling and just hauling cakes everywhere, don't do that. Find somebody who obviously looks like they're just riding normal. Stay with the pack. It makes it just easier for cars to know you are there. If there's 4 or 5 bikes around you, I know it can be a little bit intimidating at first, but I would much rather be surrounded by other bikes than surrounded by other cars. Of course, you really need to pay attention to blind spots. If you're up next to a car, do not sit in the blind spot. Either slow down or speed up, get out of that. Have a conscious mind always about where you are and what people are looking at. The way that I kind of go about it is I honestly just kind of assume that everybody else on the road is just out to kill me and has zero intention of driving safe. That is a pretty good rule of thumb. It's a pretty good way to look at it. It can be a bit of a bummer at times because you feel like you don't really get to enjoy the ride because you're constantly having your head on a swivel, but especially in the big cities, Bangkok, even Phuket, Pattaya, with all the traffic, it's not really worth it to be looking at buildings or, reading signs or looking at people and risk an accident. Now, if you're getting out into the countryside, things like that, you can, lower the defense a little bit, but you still need to be paying attention. When it comes to cars pulling out in the road that you're driving down, just assume that everybody is gonna pull out in front of you. Finding a pack of just normal people who are just driving within reason is a really good way to just kind of figure out how to move around. The biggest one that I tell everybody is intersections. I don't know about Thailand statistically, but in America, it's something insane. I think it's like 87% of motorcycle accidents happen in intersections, especially in Thailand. A lot of the times there's no stoplights. A lot of the times there's no stop signs. It's just kind of we go when we can fit. That's gonna take some getting used to for sure. But especially if you're coming up on a light, anything like that, don't assume because you've got the green light that nobody is gonna be coming the other way. Every single time I'm coming up into an intersection, even if I have a green light, I downshift, I've got my hand on the brake, I'm looking both ways, just kind of assuming as a whole that everybody is out to get me. And for the most part, that will really help you. But even if you do all of these things, the reality is if you ride a motorcycle long enough, you are gonna go down at some point. Personally, I think life is all about calculated risks. I think you end up missing out on a lot if you don't take those risks when you can, but also trying to mitigate the risk as much as you can, right? So if you do want to come to Thailand and you really want to ride a motorcycle, if you don't have experience, I just say study up all you can, reference the things we talked about today, but also get online. There are tons and tons of YouTube videos, tutorials, blogs talking about motorcycle safety. It is 100% worth it because although I love motorcycles, I love anything to do with engines, but especially when it comes to motorcycles, I will tell you a very quick way to hate motorcycles and wish you had never gotten on one at all is to be the guy laying in the middle of the road. It is a horrible feeling. Have respect for yourself. Have respect for the bike, have respect for everybody else around you, and just remember you are taking a calculated risk, but if you do all these things, if you do everything you can to keep yourself as safe as possible, it's relatively safe for the most part. Wear some real shoes. If I see any clips of any of you riding around in flip-flops, I will find you. If you did make it this far in the video, thank you so much for hanging out. Once again, apologies for the little hiatus, but we are back to work feeling like $1 million today, relatively. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you in the next one.